Hello, and welcome to Anoka County's mini training on making changes to your consumer support plan. Most of the time, you are not going to know what goods and services your loved one is going to need throughout the entire year at the time of writing the plan. It is common that you will want to make some changes throughout the year. Let's talk about how to make those changes in the middle of the plan year. We will start first with when you can make changes to your plan and then how to do it. You can make changes to your plan at any time during your plan year except in the last month there are restrictions. In the last month we do not allow new items or services to be requested. If it is an immediate health or safety need, like a ceiling lift broke down, we would likely make an exception and still approve this even though it's at the end of the year, because this is a great safety risk and something that likely cannot wait. Also, case managers may approve moving already approved funds within the last 30 days if needed. For example, if you have decided not to purchase those adapted utensils and you would like to move those funds for a few more staffing hours, your case manager can approve this through an email from you as the managing party. Or, let's say the support planner needs another hour to complete the renewal plan. The case manager can approve this through an email with an explanation. All requests must clearly be initiated by you, even if you have the support planner complete the paperwork. And always remember to indicate which item or service you are shifting funds from and which item or service those funds are being moved to. As you start this process of wanting to add a new good or service, there are things you can do to help determine whether a new item or service would be allowed for you or your loved one, and we will talk about this a little later. Because of the complexities of making changes mid-plan year, we would ask that you try not to make more than one change to your plan per month. Obviously, if an immediate health or safety need comes up and you have already done your change for the month, we will still look at it. We want you to be creative and planful throughout the year. What we do not want to see is a mass spending spree at the end of the year just to spend all the money. Again, be planful with these funds throughout the entire service plan year. If you are being paid as a paid parent of minor or spouse and want to increase your hours, we need to be assured this is still an appropriate use of funds. This will require supervisor approval and requires a new schedule. This increase should not be to just use up all the funds at the end of the year. There is an addendum specifically for increasing these hours on our website under the Forms and Guides section. Now let's talk specifically about the process. First, do your research. If you are wanting a specific product, gather product information, and remember, you are looking for the most cost-effective options that will do the trick. If there is supporting documentation or forms needed, complete them with your request. You or the support planner will need to complete the paperwork needed to make the change to the consumer support plan. You will have to make sure it fits within the budget by using unallocated dollars or reducing something already approved in the budget to make room for the new item or service. Submit the form you used to your case manager for approval. Remember, the lead agency or your case manager must approve everything you are spending waiver funds on. Once approved, you can purchase the item or start the approved service. Let's look a little closer at each specific step. To begin, determine whether the request meets basic waiver criteria. It may be helpful, before you get too far ahead of yourself, to go to the guidelines on our website at www.anokacounty.us/CDCS and see if there is any information about your request in the guidelines. Ask your support planner or case manager if he or she, based on their own opinion and experience, believe it's an allowable expense. Your goods and services should be specific to you or your loved one and the needs identified in the mid-choice assessment. So just because your friend or neighbor was able to have waiver funds pay for a particular item or service does not automatically mean that it would be approved on your plan. There are many factors that go into these decisions as it relates specifically to each individual. Next, do your research. If you are wanting a specific product, do your research. Ask for recommendations from professionals. Look online. Reach out to other participants for recommendations. ask your case manager for resources or your support planner. Remember, we must look at cost effectiveness, so we need to find the most reasonably priced product that does the trick. Our definition of cost effective states the cheapest quality services and/or products that will most likely produce positive desired outcomes or goals. It does not matter how much money you have available in the budget. We still have to look at cost effectiveness. For example, if your loved one wants an adapted bike or tricycle to participate in the community with their families or use it as transportation to work, you need to find the most cost-effective bike or trike that makes sense specifically for your loved one. There are lots of different bikes: three-wheeled bikes, side-by-side, four-wheeled bikes, baskets on the front, recumbent bikes, motorized bikes. Sometimes an adapted bike may need to be specifically designed for the individual. Regardless, it cannot have the bells and whistles on it unless they are needed based on the person's disability, or it is just a standard feature of the bike. If you want the bells and whistles, you can pay the cost difference or any upcharges. If any product is over $1,000, we need 2 bids unless the product was specifically designed for the individual by an MA provider. All items and services cannot be duplicative either. Keep this in mind. The definition that we have for duplication is excessive requesting of more than one of the same or similar products or services addressing the same assessed need. For example, if you are going to submit a list of sensory items, be sure it specifically identifies which assessed sensory need it's targeting. We are not opposed to variety, but cannot use waiver funds for duplication. Provide this specific information to your case. If there is supporting documentation or funds needed, complete them and submit them with your request. On this slide is a list of required forms we would need completed to approve certain items or services. These forms can all be found on our website under Forms and Guides. For example, if you want to add music therapy or the person is on approved specialized diet, make sure there's an alternative treatment form to accompany it. If you want to purchase a computer or tablet, make sure you have an appropriate professional complete the computer or tablet request form. If you have a parent of a minor or spouse being paid as staff and wish to increase your hours, you need to complete the paid parent of minor or spouse addendum with information about why you would like to increase the hours and include your new schedule. The lead agency must make sure the plan is still a safe plan and that the job duties and schedule reflects the need of the participant. Remember, do not increase your hours until this has been approved. If you have multiple people on CDCS in your household, and it makes sense at times to have one of your support staff work with 2 or 3 participants at the same time, this requires completing the Shared Services Form, this EDOC 6633D. Please read the guidelines for all the information needed. There may be future mini training on this topic, so check our supplemental training section on our website. If you are requesting a camera in a bedroom for an adult, this requires initial DHS approval, and your case manager will complete this form and submit it to DHS for approval. This form and approval is only needed for adults and not minors. There are also consent forms to be completed if the person is an adult and is being monitored in real time. Your case manager will complete this form with you. Also, if you live with another adult that is not a caregiver, they also must need to give consent as an affected person being monitored. You can find more information about monitoring technology in our guidelines and possibly in the future in our supplemental training section on our website. If you plan to write positive behavior reinforcers into the plan or need a required behavior plan, there is a template behavior plan located in our Form and Guides section on our website. There is more specific information around this topic in our guidelines, so please check it out. If you plan to renew adapted swim lessons, a progress report is needed on either one of our forms or the instructor forms. There is a sample form you may use on our forms page on the website. Next, let's look specifically at the ways to request changes and the paperwork needing completion. Once you have determined the expense you are requesting is likely allowable because it is specific to your loved one's assessed needs, disabilities, and/or condition, and to the best of your knowledge meets waiver criteria, and you or the support planner have done the research on the product or service and found a cost-effective option, there are a few paperwork options for submitting the requested change to your case manager. You or your support planner may complete an addendum, also known as an addition form, or may revise the entire plan reflecting the changes. There is no need to do both options. Pick the one that seems easiest for you or your support planner. Typically, if there is just one or two small changes, it is easy to use an addition or addendum form found in the form section of our website. Let's look at a specific example. Here's an example of a change using an addendum form. You need to be sure to include the item being requested, which in this case is an auto brush toothbrush, indicate the cost of the device, which is $100 plus tax, which expense category it belongs in this case it's environmental mods and provisions, and which goal it is associated with, or if it's not part of an existing goal, you will need to create a goal based on assessed need and incorporate the new item or service into the goal. Be sure the goal is measurable. In this case, the new goal is affiliated already with goal number 2 in the plan increasing daily living skills, and it will be measured by Henry being able to brush his teeth independently using this device 100% of the time. And then finally, you will need to indicate how it fits within the budget. Are you using unallocated dollars or reducing something already approved in the budget to make room for the new item or service? In this case, Henry's father, the managing party, has decided to reduce replacement clothing to make room for the new expense. Make sure that you or your managing party either type in your name as signature or sign it. It is also okay to have the support planner indicate that they completed the form with your direction. If you are unable to sign this document, please make sure you indicate in an email that you are approving this change. Submit the form to your case manager for approval, and the case manager will forward the addendum once approved to your FMS coordinator to make the changes on their end. Another way to submit a change to the plan is to revise the entire existing CSP. This option is used more so when there are multiple or major changes. If this option is used, you do not need to also complete the addendum form. Let's look at an example. Toward the top of the document, there is a button you can click that says Revision. If you click on this box, it opens a comment box that you can write a note about what changes you are making. Then you can make the changes to the goals and budget sections directly in the plan. This option will require you or your managing party to sign another CSP signature page found on the Forms page of the Anoka County website. Submit this to your case manager for approval, and then the case manager will forward the approved revised plan to the FMS coordinator to again make the change on their end. If you use this option, make sure that you indicate all changes being made in the plan in the revisions section. Only the revisions listed will be approved. And finally, the third way to make a change to your plan is to email your case manager to move funds from one approved category or item to another. For example, let's say you decide, instead of purchasing your approved tablet, you want to ask for an increase in house cleaning. Because these items and services have already been approved in the plan, you simply need to write an email to your case manager asking him or her to move the funds from the tablet, $350, to staffing and what the reason for the change is. Next is an example of this. Your sample email to your case manager may say something like this. Dear Casey Case Manager, we have decided not to purchase a tablet this year. I also overestimated the cost of the weighted vest by $15. Could you please move $15 from the weighted vest line and the tablet funds to increase my house cleaning by 3 cleanings in the amount of $365? Thanks. Prior to approving this, your case manager still needs to make sure that it fits within the guidelines. In this example, the house cleaning had already been approved at $3,900. The person decides not to purchase the approved tablet at $350 and had leftover funds from the weighted vest at $15 that they would like to move to house cleaning for 3 more house cleanings during the plan year. The case manager still needs to make sure that the increase in house cleaning makes sense in this plan and that it has not gone over the guideline limit of $5,000 per household. In this case, it has not gone over the $5,000 limit, and in knowing this person's situation and the needs, the case manager approves this change. If this does go over the limit, an explanation would need to be included, and a supervisor would need to approve this increase since it is over the limit. Let's take a closer look at approvals and denials. When making changes to the approved CDCS plan, you can expect this to be approved or denied anytime from 2 days to 2 weeks, typically. It tends to take longer for approval if it is a more unusual or non-typical request. For example, if it is a new alternative therapy that we are not familiar with, we may have to do more research ourselves, or it may have to go to our waiver advisory committee made up of a team of supervisors to further examine whether this makes sense and is allowable for your loved one. When your new requested item or service is approved, the lead agency signs the form submitted, and the case manager forwards the changes to the FMS to make changes on their end. The FMS typically will send out a new budget worksheet or utilization report to the participant and the case manager reflecting this change. If the item or service is denied, the lead agency notes this on the form. The case manager will contact you by phone or by email, notifying you that your request is denied. They will also ask if you think you would like to appeal this decision. If you would like to appeal, the case manager will send you an official notice of action, which outlines how to make the appeal. Your case manager can help you through this process. You can also watch one of our mini training segments on appeals. Following, we will discuss some things participants or managing parties can move forward with without necessarily getting approval first from their case manager, and some things case managers are able to approve themselves without having to go through their supervisor or the waiver advisory committee approval process. Let's take a closer look. As the managing party and essentially employer, there are some things that you can determine or move forward with on your own without having to wait for the approval of the case manager. However, any changes made should always be communicated with your team, including your case manager. Managing parties that also get paid as staff or other support staff may opt out of PTO benefit at any time after they pass the 6-month or 600-hour threshold. As mentioned earlier, the SEIU union requires payroll to take a percentage out of all staff wages to cover this benefit. Currently, 3.1% is taken out of all staff wages. Remember, there are risks to opting out of this option. If you opt out of PTO, you would no longer be adding to a bank of hours you could use if your loved one were hospitalized, and you were then not able to be paid using waiver funds. So please talk with your FMS about this specifically and complete the necessary paperwork if you wish to move forward. You, as a managing party, are able to hire your own staff at any time, as long as they can pass the background study. When hiring someone, you can decide what their wage will be within our guidelines. Please keep in mind that the wages should match the staff qualifications and experience. If you want to pay a new hire a wage higher than the current PCA wage, that will require lead agency approval. It is always wise, whenever a change is made, to request an updated budget worksheet from your FMS. This way, you and the rest of the team know exactly what has been approved and how many hours a week you may schedule your staff to avoid any overspending. Next, we will talk about what your case manager can approve on their own. There are some things that Anoka County allows their case managers to approve without going through the typical process. This allows for quicker response times and decisions. Staffing only is one of these areas. We do not ever want you or your loved one to be without support staff if needed. You need to be aware, however, that when your plan is being reviewed for renewal, the county has up to 30 days to review it. So if it is not fully reviewed by the time the new plan is supposed to begin, we allow our case managers to partially approve the plan for staffing only. The case manager makes sure the new CDCS plan is signed and that the staffing outlined in the plan meets Anoka County guidelines. The case manager will then have a service agreement entered, inform the participant and the FMS that staffing has been approved, but that the rest of the plan is still in the process of being reviewed, so all other services and goods are pended. Obviously, the sooner you get the plan in, the better chances you will have of the entire plan being reviewed completely by the start of your new plan date. Remember, if your plan is not signed and submitted prior to the start date, you will be issued a technical assistance, and staff will not be able to be paid until a signed plan is in place. We will not allow back pay for the staff because when using waiver funds, services must always be prior approved. Another service your case manager may approve on their own is additional support planner hours with an email explanation of why more hours are needed. For example, maybe they underestimated the time it was going to take to complete the renewal, or had to make several changes throughout the year, taking away from the hours that were earmarked originally for writing the new plan. In the email, include information about where the funds will be moved from to cover the additional support planner hours. Another service your case manager can approve is appropriate training for staff or the participant themselves. If you had training earmarked and written into the plan, but it was pended because it did not include enough information, the case manager can approve a specific training if including the needed information on an addendum. Remember to include a written description of the class if it is not self-explanatory in the title. For a brand new request for training, again, complete an addendum including information about the class and be sure it is appropriate and attached to a goal. We have already discussed that the case manager can approve moving funds around within already approved items or services as long as the request is still within our limits. Case managers can approve transportation services or any appropriate licensed services using their own authority. And lastly, case managers can approve anything that cannot wait to go through the approval process because it is an immediate health and safety concern, like the van lift needs to be repaired as soon as possible because it is inoperable. Remember, any request still must fit within the overall budget amount. We have one last thought in making changes to your plan. Dates do matter, and be planful. Never purchase an item or start a service until it has been officially approved. Medical assistance and waiver rules dictate that any waiver funds used must be prior approved before using them. The FMSs do check dates, so if you request a lift chair on June 17th, but actually already purchased it on May 30th, the waiver funds cannot go back and pay for that item. It was not prior approved. If you decide to increase your paid parent of a minor hours and start working those hours prior to the increase being approved, those hours should not be paid to you. You need to be planful and strategic with these waiver dollars. That concludes the mini training for making changes to the CDCS plan. If you have any further questions, please call or email your case manager. Thank you for attending this informational session.